All right. So, welcome, guys. This is the UK Sangha. Marcus and Laurent and I are actually in Thailand, and that um, actually on the island here we have others. Daniel is here on the island, and so is Tun. And so we've got quite a party happening tomorrow night, I think.
Yeah.
Tam, yeah. So anyway, Tam's got a barbecue or buffet planned. So uh, somebody's got a motorbike in their microphone. Uh, so um, today we can talk about a couple of things. We had already started talking about the value and the usefulness of sleep in the regards to the Dhamma, and that everyone would kind of agree that ever how many hours it is, or what the length of the sleep is, or the quality of the sleep, eventually we want the sleep that we do get to be up to the job of giving us the restoration that we needed based upon how much work and deterioration and stress and whatnot happened throughout the day. That's basically what real good sleep is all about. It's sort of, uh, let us say, turning the computer off before you open the lid and then take the back off and start changing hard drives and whatnot parts, adding memories and things like this, um, that we don't want to keep the system running. That in fact, even in very sophisticated systems that are got in the intention is 100% uptime. Basically, that means that they've got more than one full copy of the whole system, so that they can move one system on, so that they can take another system completely offline, so that they can do the work that it needs to be done on it. A clear example of that is in racing, around a track. And from time to time, they do something called a pit stop. You know what a pit stop is? I'm sure you guys know enough about that. Okay. Why do they guys make pit stops? Because it's really hard to change the tires when you're running at 100 miles an hour. It really is hard to change the tires when you're going flying. And they also have the example of that it's really hard to build an airplane while you're already in the air. So, this is actually what we mean then by sleep. And it's kind of important that we recognize this, because in our society, they put value on it, but then we do a lot of stuff to distract that value so that the quality of the sleep that we get is not really that restorative. It doesn't really do its job. And we wind up being tired. And then that mind tiredness kind of hangs around. We get the idea, oh, I'm so tired. And then instead of the next sentence looking at the next breath you take and whether or not you're actually waking up or not, you keep that attitude of, I'm tired today. I didn't get enough sleep. Instead of paying attention to what's happening in the moment. This happens quite often. The next time that you feel really tired, recognize that you don't have to imprint that. That really the mind is over the matter, that we can, in fact, start planning on getting the amount of sleep that we need. Now, basically, as I was saying before, if we do less throughout the day, if we have less stress, if we have less wear and tear, then we don't need so much sleep. And we begin to have a surplus so that we feel really easy. Another quality that we want to look at is that we can get great value out of short term sleeping, like a nap or a siesta. Of let yourself go in the afternoon for a little while and go to sleep. Then, when you're up at night and you're remembering, oh, I'm so, now it's 11:30, midnight, whatever, and I'm wide awake, you can reflect upon the reason for that is because I've already had half the sleep I need tonight already. And so I can and now enjoy the fact that I'm wide awake at midnight, and then in a few minutes later, we'll go back to sleep and maybe wake up at 4 and get into the rhythm of waking up several times throughout the night, which is kind of a no-no. They say, oh, you should not have an interrupted sleep. Let them sleep, right? Oh, don't get that kid up right now. Let him sleep because he needs that sleep. And the answer to that is no. What we need is enough sleep, but interrupting sleep does not mean that we're not going to get what we need, that in fact, going in and then coming into the dream state and then waking somebody up when they're in the dream state may be better, more beneficial to them, and letting them go back to sleep so that now that they can get the restorative sleep that they need. Also, there's something very interesting about sleep, and that is that we often incorporate the sensory awareness that's still there, that when we're asleep, we still have some sensory awareness. And that if that triggers us strongly enough, we can wake up from it. An example of that is a loud crash, a noise, maybe a siren, and we will hear that and wake up. If we can train for that, then someone tiptoeing in the room will be enough to trigger that and wake us up. Because equally dangerous, just one's not making as much noise. And so, by the way, there's an old story in the Zen that the king walked down the hall and saw the repairman fixing the floor, and he says, "What are you guys doing?" And they says, "Oh, the commander says that there's a squeak in this floor and that we want it repaired." And the king says, "Stop what you're doing and walk away." And they says, "Yes, Majesty." And then he said to his partner there, is that was the best burglar alarm we had. Is that squeaky floor, making a little bit of noise to wake us up. Okay. And the Japanese, by the way, are very famous for that kind of thing on both sides. I guess both sides of what we would call the ninja. Can you sneak around at night and do your damage without making any sound at all? Or are you going to walk into an environment where they're waiting on you? And so both of these points are quite Buddhist. That the walking meditation, in fact, has that quality that when you begin to do a lot of walking meditation, you begin to kind of walk silently because you're watching where you're going. You're not stomping around anymore. You're paying attention to what you're doing. And then you can do things like walk into the kitchen and absolutely startle the cook or the plate, the bottle washer, the dishwasher, because they didn't know that you were in the kitchen because you weren't making enough noise. So in fact, you could say that they were asleep, but they were asleep mentally. They weren't paying attention to what was going on. And then in fact, that's something that's quite, let us say, it's quite the thing within at least Achan Po's little circle, is about being quiet and walking around that way, and yet also being on alert to where someone else walking around quietly is well known that he's there. And ordinary people both stomp around and make a lot of noise at what they're doing, and they're even so asleep that they're not even paying attention to the stomping around. And so part of the practice that we're developing is to be in the present moment, which means being in our senses. And we can begin to develop that at night also. That in fact, I'm really, for myself, not quite so sure. But for Tam, I'm actually quite impressed that she will be up in an instant. Anything that happens, and she's awake, she'll wake right up. So we have this whole quality of sleep that has to do with the dream state. Now, normally, what happens with the dream state is this input that we have. Instead of waking right up into consciousness with that sound, we'll incorporate it into the dream. That will make it as part of the dream, which is actually, in a way, the way that we process stuff anyway, that we all kind of live in a dream. And when we receive sensory input, instead of taking that sensory input as the signal or the alarm that it actually is, and we'll just take it and incorporate it into the dream state that we're already in and not recognize the value of things. And so, in this way, you can say that and the Buddha calls it like this, that we burn by day and smolder by night.
I was going to mention the smoke analogy, but you did it already.
Yes,
smoke
that
of
we
consciousness. Yeah.
yeah, the smoke or the smolder of the consciousness is what we're doing in the dream state, which is just another way of saying the same thing, because in fact we do have the word for it. It's called daydreaming. That when the little kid is looking out the window, instead of paying attention to his teacher, she'll call him out and say, "Stop daydreaming. Stop thinking about something else and be here now. Be in the room. Be in the class." Funny thing like that. We start off at a young age not paying attention to what's going on, that we start winding up in our own little world. And that we do that during the day, and then we do it at night. And so that nighttime burning is not really as restorative or reparative, and also doing all of that burning all day is much of the reason why we need all of that repair anyway. And so when we stop burning and smoldering during the burning during the day, we actually don't do so much smoldering at night. That we're much more likely to wake up than go into a dream state. And why is that? Because we don't need so much sleep. And so you could say that dreaming is kind of a mechanism to try to keep us asleep, because we need to be asleep, because we need that restoration. But when we've already got, our bucket full, or our let us say our savings account is high enough that we're not going to be bouncing any checks anytime soon, that we've got a surplus of restorative energy, then it's easy enough to just wake up and then go back to sleep and then wake up again. That oftentimes insomnia is not the lack of sleep, but it's the lack of becoming restful. That we generally get worried about something. That the times, in fact, they talk about it, is that, he's going to lose some sleep over that one. And what does that mean? That means that whatever it was that happens, now we've got the mind burning when we could, in fact, just relax instead. So, in a way, we're talking about the same thing that happens all day. We do it in the night, too. And it's not restful. But what is restful is to remember that we don't have to do that. We don't have to relive or reorganize or revisit anything. That we can just lay in bed, for instance, at night and just enjoy, it's so quiet and it's so comfortable and there's no place to go and nothing to do, and I can just enjoy myself for the next 8 hours. I don't even have to go to sleep because I already feel good. Now, this is the kind of nighttime prayer that will be most useful, is to go to sleep with no worries at all. Nothing for the dreams to hack onto, to climb out of their hole into our dream state. It's because we're already in a very good place. So this is an important thing, that when you go to sleep at night, go to sleep with the right preparation. The Buddha also recommends sleeping on the side. And there's an awful lot of mattresses sold because people don't sleep on their side. But if you sleep on your side, then you can sleep much easier. You can breathe easier. And so sleeping on the side is actually part of the training for being a monk, is to learn to sleep on your side. And so when we do that, we're already changing the position of the head in a more wholesome way. So that if you, for instance, are sleeping on your back, then the frontal cortex is drained of the blood because that's on top, and all of the blood will be pooled into the back area of the brain, which is where the hippocampus and the amygdala and all of those kind of feeling things are. And that they've actually done some recent research in neurophysiology and social things, and they have found that the states that are the counties, even down to the county level, that have to do with whether they're conservative politically, redneck, angry, hate immigrants, that kind of mentality, actually has a correspondent of a fairly larger hippocampus and amygdala system. That they actually have a more robust, primitive part of what we call the reptilian brain. And so I wonder even if the sleeping has something to do with that, that we rearrange our head posture and position so that we get better blood flow to the temporal cortex and to the frontal cortex. And so if we practice like this, give yourself permission to wake up during the night, to rearrange your body, to see what posture that you're in. We don't even have to bother checking what time it is because that's irrelevant. But you can recognize I'm awake now. Let me do anapanasati now and practice correctly now and go back to sleep. And so this is a way of practicing anapanasati that's very beneficial. That in fact we do want to wake up out of these dream states. And so playing with your mind during the night actually will give you a better relaxed day tomorrow. Also, why? Because if you got all the rest that you needed tonight, then you don't start the day in the deficit of your rest. You're full. You've got enough. You've got enough energy. Now, that's also got something to do with the body being sick, because that's going to bring the body down and take the energy away from it. But the mind and the body are separate enough so that you don't have to think and feel sick simply to experience the body being sick, or in the case that we're talking about, being tired. That the body will feel tired for a little while and then it'll feel good again. But we have this downer mentality, so that as soon as I catch the body feeling bad, I say, "Oh no, bad sleep, didn't get enough, hard day today," and so we almost program the day to need more sleep the next time we go to sleep. But all of this has to do then with our attitude. So, does anybody have any questions about this? This is a really interesting topic, something to worth playing with. Yes, Marcus, go ahead.
The statement "living the dream" seems in the English language to be like a positive thing, living the dream. But I think just to relate it what we're talking about, perhaps the dream is just an unhelpful concept of achievement or something, in a way that's taking us away from the present moment.
Actually, no, I would say, in fact, that living the dream means actually feeling the way that we want to feel once we figure out that we can feel the way that we want to feel. And that's the hard part, is figuring out that we can feel the way that we want to feel. And then we start to question, well, how do I want to feel? Okay, so that becomes the dream, but in this sense, it's very positive. Okay, but when you go around telling people, or it happens in general, that you're dreaming, that means that you're not in reality at all.
Hmm. So is it kind of impossible to remove the dreamlike aspect of consciousness in a way, because it's a kind of a part of it?
It is dreaming.
Mm.
That's the whole point of it, is that we are human beings. When I see that tree, I am not actually the tree. I am perceiving the tree. And in the process of taking that data in, just like anything about signal processing, I was in radio telemetry many, many years ago when error correction was a profound problem. Okay, error detection and correction. Well, guess what? That's what happens. The signal that's sent is not the signal that's received, even in radio electronics, even in the depths of your computer. The signal that's sent is not the signal that's received. We got to test it. We got to check it out. We got to put some parity bits in there. We got to ask for a retransmission from time to time, and all that's built into the software. And us humans don't do that. We will receive data without investigating it, without checking it out, without doing parity on it, without reaffirming it. We just take in data and we miss it every time. The tree that I see is not the tree that exists. Couldn't possibly be. For one thing, I'm not eating the worms that are in that tree. I'm just seeing the bark on the tree. So I'm not even getting a full helping of that tree just by seeing it. I'm only getting a tiny taste. The reality of the tree I don't want. It's a big coconut tree. I couldn't hold it. A little dab will do you in that respect, but also understand that all we're getting is just a little dab, rather than thinking we knew the whole thing when all we know is just a little bit. If we would apply that practice, there would be no more arguments. People wouldn't argue with each other. They'd listen instead. But we think we know when we don't. This is also called confirmation bias. It's quite common. And so the example that I first was using is, we think we're tired because we feel tired in one feeling moment, and we think that we're going to have to feel that way all day, when in fact that's not the case at all. Let's keep our eyes open. That in fact could have been an error in our signal processing. And all it was the body asking for a really deep breath. And if we gave the body a really deep breath, rather than the diagnosis, oh, I'm so tired, then we may not have had to go through that monologue that we go through about judging ourselves. And so often, in fact, a good deep breath is the answer to many things. And so we can begin to change the topic in this sense, that a good deep breath will actually answer the dilemmas that we have, that we create, of the unknown. We really don't know whether we're tired or not. We just assume, because I felt a twinge of tiredness, that I'm tired, rather than continuing to do an investigation. But there's a lot of stuff that we can have doubt about. Wow, is there a lot? In fact, anything that we know that we don't quite know is subject to doubt. And there's two ways to handle doubt. Actually, there's three ways. The third way, by the way, you don't want to do. That's the one that you've been doing. Getting confused and uptight and upset and worried and all of that kind of stuff. Why? Because that kind of doubt actually winds up being the fear of the unknown. And so we become fearful for no reason at all, other than the fact that we don't know something. And often that which we want to know was something that we dreamed up anyway. That it's irrelevant. It doesn't have to do with anything. Okay, something like, do zebras have white and black stripes going in the same direction on both sides, or are they mirror images of each other? Well, gosh, I don't know. Do I need to know that? For some reason or another, we get into wanting to know those answers. Hang on, I think we've got delivery. Nope. Okay, Lucky, enough. So, in the sense of doubt, by the way, going into doubt, there is useful, valuable poisons in doubt, that it's not all bad, that there is wholesome doubt and unwholesome doubt. And possibly the distinction between the two is whether or not the wholesome doubt will have curiosity that's built in joy. So doubt plus joy equals curiosity. And now we can go looking for something without having to be feeling bad or sad that we don't already know the answer to it, that we're willing to investigate, which is really what the Dhamma should be about anyway.
It's playful, right?
Pardon?
It's playful, right?
Yes, we begin to play with the things that we don't know, to investigate them, to twirl it around. And that we can do that without having to have the fear of it, the fear of the doubt of whether it's wholesome or not. Now, I've already mentioned the one way that's unwholesome, which is to become afraid. So the first way then of dealing with doubt is by using it as curiosity, that it's something to look at, something to investigate, something worth seeing in and of itself, while I'm sitting here just watching for what's happening. We'll just put that kind of on the to-do list of things to look out for. And when the doubt comes back up again, we'll say, never mind, we'll figure that out soon enough. So that's the kind of an attitude that we have. Now, the third kind of way of dealing with doubt is the more noble way, the high quality way. And that is to recognize that whatever it is that we have doubt about,